Welcome to another Mother Runner, your best running friend in podcast form. We do all the talking, even on the uphills. I'm your host, Sarah Bowen Shea, and my co-host today is Tish Hamilton. Welcome, Tish. I'm so happy we are reunited on this gig.
Hello, Sarah. I'm so glad to be talking to you again.
I know. But we have been in touch. It was not hasta la vista, and that was the end of it.
Yes, although it felt funny to just talk without it being recorded. I'm like, well, we need to be recording this and talking to somebody.
That was so weird. But then we also, we text each other photos of blooming plants, me from Portland, you from Savannah, and then handwritten notes back and forth, all of which make me smile. So
yes,
yeah.
And in fact, I was telling some friends about the flower thing because you actually really inspired me. You inspired me both for the flowers and the note writing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, totally. And when I went on a hike last summer, you know, when you're backpacking, you got these long hikes where you're not talking, and it's a long time, and it inspired me to look for flowers, look for wildflowers. That was a great distraction. Gave me something to do.
Yeah. Glad I could help you fill the miles.
Yes. And also, I love your note writing thing. That has always inspired me from back when I first heard you talking about it. I think that it's great. And a friend of mine gave me some really, really nice, cool stationery where the paper is it's like handmade paper somehow. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really thick and it's got a nice texture and it's fun to write on and send off to people.
Yes, I have that very cute French poodle thank you card that wearing a striped shirt, not unsimilar to the one you're wearing right now, and it says merci on the shirt. I have that on my desk, so I look at that while I work. So thank you.
Yes, I do like the stripes. I see you like the stripes too.
Yeah. Yes. So, and then one of your missives to me told during our the 4 months that we haven't been on the air, you told me about your super secret marathon.
Yes.
So the jig is up. Tell us about your super secret marathon.
Yeah, I ran a marathon in January. It was on, it's fairly local I live in Savannah, Georgia. It's on an island called Dalfusky, which is off the coast of South Carolina. And it's actually got some history with the Gullah Geechee community. It has a year-round population of something like 500. So really, really, not populated island. You can't have a car on the island. You can drive a golf cart around or ride a bicycle around. And there was a marathon there that was, it's 2 loops, so a half marathon and a marathon. There used to be a ultra where you do 3 loops. So there's always somebody out there crazier than you. But anyway, it's in January, and January works really nicely for me because I teach in a school that ends right in mid-November, right before Thanksgiving. So I have, 6 to 7 weeks off between Thanksgiving and New Year's. Yes. And so that's great training time. It's great training time schedule wise. It's great training time Savannah wise. Because right. It's like you have a better chance of it not being too hot and humid. And same with race day. You have a better chance of it not being too hot and humid. So because it was local, it didn't cost a lot. It was, it's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money. Like, I think it was $120 maybe, which compared with New York, which is like $350 just to enter. So it was local, and I had to pay a lot. I could drive to it, and very low key. It reminds me a lot of the original ultra scene, or because there was like 300 people in the marathon, maybe 300 and a half as well, but we had separate starts. And people were just hanging out, chatting at start line, and then like, oh, it's time to go, let's go. And then you see the same people when you finish, right? And they come up and say, oh, how'd your race go? It was just really a lovely vibe and really low key. And so I really liked that. This was interesting to me. This is the first race I've ever done that was a cup-free race. Have you done a cup-free race yet?
We have when we did Women Run our own race. We had an organizer at the Hilton Head event. It was cup free. Yes.
Yeah.
But that was not a marathon. That was some people did a half. I did a 10K, so I could just, I didn't have to carry a cup with me.
Right.
But, yeah,
So they gave like little silicone cups you can carry, right? So I actually had a hydration vest where the bottles are like on the front, and I got that, and I saw this beforehand and got it in anticipation and practiced with it. No big deal. But you do have to refill, and so my partner Rick came and we rented a bike for him, and he came out and refilled twice. But he also said, "I'm never doing this again."
A Sherpa is not what he aims to be in life.
Especially when his runner's doing 5.5 hours. It's a long day.
Oh my goodness, he brings you a big jug of water. Just carry this. I'm done.
Yeah. Okay, no problem, dear.
Oh my goodness, yes.
But when I was telling you about this, you were also talking about you were maybe thinking about maybe putting one on your calendar.
Yeah, no, that has gone by the wayside.
Yeah, that thought came and left.
Yes. I gave it serious, and I even gave it serious consideration and even told some people about it. And then even Dimity mentioned it on our kickoff on our relaunch episode.
Right, here I am mentioning it too.
I
See,
know,
that's why you don't tell anybody.
I know, because
that's
also
why it's super secret.
When Dimity mentioned it in the recording, I looked at her and I thought, oh, I forgot to tell her I'm not doing that. Yeah.
Don't take another marathon.
Yeah. So, and it was partly, when I went to your old stomping grounds, to New Jersey to see John, my only workout option other than walking was running. And since I love running there so much, I ran every day, and that was not a good move. But I also did it in part to see if my body could handle the load. And the answer was a big no.
How many days in a row is every day for you?
It was 9.
9 days in a row without a day off? Okay, that's a lot.
Yes. And I think one of those days, maybe I did 10. I think I did 10, and then the following weekend I did 7 in the snow.
Yeah, that's a lot, especially if you're not used to it.
Yes, and so my left knee decided to suddenly have a new pain in it.
Yeah, your left knee's like, excuse me, what do you think you're doing?
Right.
We don't.
I told
do
you
this.
I'd say something if you tried too hard. And then my back started wigging out on me a little bit.
Yeah,
and I just also, and then I got kind of back into my routine of playing pickleball outside on the weekends, and I dusted off my elliptigo to start riding it for the spring. I'm like, there's too many things I want to be doing, and there's this new job that I'm starting with, you might have heard about it with Feisty. So I was like, yeah, I think I'm not going to do that. So who knows? I'm not saying no to another marathon, but for 2026.
Not right now. Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, well, speaking of Feisty, this episode kicks off a month of Feisty crossover episodes. Every Friday in April, a co-host and I will have a conversation with a host from one of Feisty's other podcasts. Since AMR is now part of the Feisty family, I hope this is not news for people listening, because I want to introduce listeners to other members of the Feisty podcast dynasty. So Tish and I are starting with the mother of all Feisty podcasts, Hit Play Not Pause, a wildly popular menopause-focused show with nearly 300 episodes in its back catalog. AMR has 1,000, so I like it when you find a show that has all these back episodes. It's like, oh, there's a whole treasure trove of listening. So Hit Play is hosted by our guest, Selene Yeager, who Tish and I know from our years in the magazine world, which is where Selene hails from. Selene Yeager is a longtime health and science journalist who has authored more than a dozen books. I was not aware of that before looking her up, including co-authoring Roar and Next Level with Stacy Sims, books that I know a lot of our listeners adore, as do we. A certified personal trainer and former professional mountain bike racer, Selene is an avid cyclist, trail runner, hiker, and strength trainer. In addition to hosting Hit Play Not Pause, Selene heads up Feisty Menopause, including writing the Feisty 40+ weekly newsletter. Well, welcome to the show, Selene, and thanks for joining us.
I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, good. And I love your background. You're,
It's not real brick, it's a facade, but it makes a good background.
It looks cool.
I envisioned you with the spray can and the whole bit there, Selene.
You know, I did that at my parents' house many years ago, but I did not do that in my office. I took a cheat code.
Okay.
So, Selene, you have a very illustrious athletic background and resume, but take us back to the beginning. How did you get started?
Wow. How much time do we have? I will try to give an abbreviated version of that because it's just sort of, I mean, it's been my life for the past 30 years. I'm kind of a late accidental athlete, I guess, as far as people know me. In high school, I played field hockey and sports, but I never would have branded myself an athlete necessarily. I was good, but I was not into endurance sports. I was not a runner. I rode a bike. I loved riding a bike, but I didn't know people raced bikes. You know, I grew up in a little town. I didn't know any of that. And it wasn't until I got to Rodale Press, where Runner's World, bicycling, all of that as a young adult, that I saw all these people like running at lunch and riding bikes at lunch, and they invited me to join them. And then they were like, "Have you considered racing?" I was like, "No." And you know, but they got me into it, and I won my first bike race, and it sort of took off from there. So yeah, I started then getting into mountain bike racing, and I did triathlon and Ironman. I got picked up by a mountain bike racing team, and the rest is sort of history. Here we are.
So you mentioned going to Rodale. Tell us about your professional background, like how you got to Rodale and what you were doing there when you first started.
So I started off when I got out of school as a medical writer. I had thought that I might want to go pre-med, and then I decided that I didn't want to go all that school for all that long. And I always really liked writing. So I got a communications degree, and I did take some anatomy and phys and pre-med courses. And then I came out and I just started working at medical publishing companies. So I would actually go to medical conferences and cover them and we would go to Kinko's, if anyone remembers Kinko's, and create on-site dailies for medical conventions, that kind of thing. It was actually kind of cool. But I didn't want to always work at like infectious diseases in children and all these things that I was writing for, you know. So I kept looking for a way to get into lay press, and Rodale, I discovered them in some help wanted ads back in the day and sent some resumes and eventually got hired, and I was in their book division. So I was writing their health and fitness books back in the day. And then I started working for prevention in Runner's World, and you know how it goes.
So menopause and perimenopause are very much talked about now. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, Selene, but you know, that was not the case even just a few years ago. And you really led the charge in talking about this formerly taboo subject. So how did you become the menopause guru of sorts?
Like everything, kind of accidentally. It's just like a lot of my career follows my own trajectory. I was racing bikes while riding for bicycling and doing, training in women, getting coaching certificates and training women and all of that and writing about it. So all those things always have coexisted. So when I hit menopause myself, I was still, perimenopause, I should say, I was still racing, and I was feeling some abrupt changes. And I had written Roar with Dr. Stacy Sims, and she was working in the menopause space, sort of dipping her toes into like what that transition really looks like, because now we know the perimenopause transition has enormous impacts on women, way beyond hot flashes and way beyond anything that we have talked about in the greater society, let's say. So I started telling her what I was experiencing as far as power loss and body composition changes and anxiety and stuff that I just hadn't associated with menopause. And she's like, yep. So we wrote Next Level together, and I was talking she at the time was working with Feisty as an agency, and they're like, do you want to do a webinar? And I said, you should have a podcast. And they said, do you want to do it? And I said, yes. So that's how that came to be.
So before we get too far along, and just sort of to set the stage for all our listeners, help us define perimenopause and menopause.
Menopause is just one day in time. Menopause right now, and it's funny because when you go to the meetings, they're talking about maybe getting a better definition for menopause because it is a little arbitrary. It's just 1 year when you haven't had a period. That is menopause. And then everything after that is postmenopause. Everything before that is either pre or peri. But a lot of women, if they've had an IUD or if they've had a hysterectomy, a lot of women don't know, so there's not really great benchmarks in the medical literature for menopause itself. But that is the working definition of menopause. And then perimenopause, which is also known as the menopause transition, is the 5-10 year, it's very individual, but it's the years in which your ovaries are starting to, check out, if you will. It's not like they just turn off like a light switch. It's a long process of hormonal fluctuation, cycles where you don't release an egg, like all kinds of stuff is going on under the surface, but that leads to wild hormone swings. And because we have estrogen receptors all over our body and these hormones orchestrate so many of our organ systems, it can lead to all of these symptoms that women experience long before menopause. And that can include hot flashes and sleep disruptions and brain fog and anxiety and mood swings and on and on and on.
So for folks who haven't had the pleasure of listening to Hit Play, can you describe your podcast to them?
Yeah, it's just a podcast, and it individuates itself because it's for active women. So it is a podcast for performance-minded, active, athletic women in and beyond the menopause transition is sort of the very neat box that I put it in. But I talk to researchers and dietitians and athletes and people of all stripes about how to, manage your active self through this transition so you can still perform and feel your best. And to be very, very clear, we see that many women can. I mean, I didn't start racing at a semi-professional level until I was 39 into my 40s. And women, especially in endurance sports, we see they have a very long tail, right, on their career. But menopause comes in there and does pull the rug out from underneath them very often. So there's ways you can manage a lot of that, and we talk all about it.
I love the hyper-specificity of this, and I'm sure that your listeners are really, really passionate and care deeply about your expertise in this subject. So a recent episode of Hit Play addresses a quest that many of our listeners are pursuing, right? It's about continuing to run into your best midlife. And you talked to an amazingly strong and resilient 56-year-old ultra runner. So she's obviously covering way more miles than most of us. But exactly. But talk to us about a key takeaway or two that would apply to women who are running whatever their weekly mileage is.
Well, one of them I'm sure we'll talk about through this episode at some point. Resistance training is a big piece. I mean, she realized that it becomes non-negotiable, especially for keeping yourself and your tendons and your connective tissues strong. Resistance training just becomes a non-negotiable piece, especially for people who are doing long runs like that. It's good for your bone health, good for your connective tissue health. And also a lot of simple stuff like respecting the fact that you do need that recovery and really tuning into your body and giving it the recovery it needs, not just constantly beating it down. You have to give yourself that time to build it back up. And that becomes especially true for everybody, men and women. But, the menopause piece does really amplify that. So, I mean, those were like the two biggest takeaways. And community. She was and I think that's a really underutilized piece, if I'm honest, that women do so well. And you guys know this. They do so well with community and with people who, have done those big scary things. She's like, find people who've done it and talk to them, and you'll see that you can do it too. They've done it, and they can, build you up and support you along your journey. And I thought, yeah, that's such an underutilized piece of success for so many people, I think.
Well, you're validating the choice I made this morning, which was I was all set up. I got up for my alarm and I was all set to go for just a 3-mile run, but I was like, my knee kind of hurts and I'm a little bit tired. So very unlike me, I went back to bed for a while and instead woke up and did strength training at home. because it doesn't take up as much time and all this. So yes, so thank you. Yeah,
Good choice. I applaud that choice.
Go good.
But it's stuff like that. I mean, because if you didn't listen to that and you went out kind of tired and kind of niggly, the odds of you exacerbating that or getting hurt are higher. And then what? Now you've set yourself back for absolutely no reason.
It's exactly the thought process that I went through. I'm like, in the span of my life, what are those 3 miles going to do for me in the plus column?
100%. I have those conversations with myself all the time.
I'm like, okay, the plus column, it's imperceptible. The plus, the cons, as bright as day.
Yes.
So I'm not proving anything to myself this morning, and other than making good choices. So yeah. All right. So thank you for validating.
You're welcome.
So Tish and I are both on the other side of menopause. So we're gonna sneak in a few personal questions.
No problem.
As we sense our situations are not unique. And for me, I went through what I think of as an early or early-ish menopause. I really got, talk about the rug being pulled out from under you. I went 11 months without a period to have one final one that when I was about 47, I don't even remember the exact year, but so I had to reset that clock, which really irked me. But I know for a fact I was period free for more than a year by the age of 48.
Okay.
And
a
so
little on the earlier side than average.
Yeah. And at the time, I felt very similar. I won't lay on the couch and really talk to you, Dr. Selene, about this for too much. But like I felt very much the way I did when my first husband left me when I was 29. Like I felt like I was the only person at that age going through a divorce. And since, and then I go back to like my high school reunion 10 years later, and there's several people who got divorced at that age. I was like, where were you? So I felt that same way about menopause. So circling back to community, maybe I could have found some other people. But for me, the most bothersome, worrisome symptom was the brain fog that I had. It was so bad that I was fully convinced I was going through early onset dementia, and that I was too scared to mention it. But then, I mean, I couldn't remember words.
Yep.
I definitely forget remembering names, all that stuff. And, but I have, now it's all come back to me. And but you talk to a lot of women, and particularly active women. Do you get the sense which symptoms bother them more, mental or physical?
Boy, that's a hard question because they're so inextricably linked, right? But I have heard a number of people talk about what you're talking about, which I think when it goes to the point where you're actually concerned that you've got early onset dementia or something terrible is happening, that is very unsettling. And when you talk, that goes beyond, oh, I'm not running as fast as I once was, or I'm having, trouble hitting my numbers. It's, can I do my job? And I hear that is very, very unsettling. And I hear that all the time. I hear that one of the women I've worked with on some of her projects, she's an orthopedic surgeon, and she would be doing surgery and not be able to remember the instrument names.
Oh,
so
wow.
she would have to be like, pass me the thing that does this thing, and like do pinchy things with her hands, which just makes you feel like really, that's unsettling. But the whole word recall thing is actually listed in the literature as something that many, many women experience. And if you look at some of Lisa Mosconi's work, who does the brain scans across the menopause transition, you see literally the brain is changing shape and how it's using energy. I mean, it literally does through the
Wow.
you can see it. And so it explains some of what's happening, and the brain also adapts. So it comes back. Some women don't have there's a small percentage that could persist, and that they do need further support for that. But for most women, the brain becomes a new normal, and like you're saying, you but it is unsettling.
Oh, it's very unsettling. Yeah. All right, so it's time for a short sponsor break. Please support these brands as a way to support this show. Stay with us for more about menopause. This episode is brought to you by IQ Bar. IQ Bar is the better for you plant protein based snacks. IQ Bar gives you the delicious, low sugar brain and body fuel you need to win your day. IQ Bar's plant protein bars are packed with high quality ingredients to help keep you physically and mentally fit. And I know you'll love this detail. All IQ Bar products are clean label certified and entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial ingredients. With more than 20,000 five-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are kickstarting their days with IQ Bar's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. The Ultimate Sampler Pack is a great way to try all IQ Bar products and flavors because you get 9 IQ Bars, 8 IQ Mix Sticks, and 4 IQ Joe Sticks. Thanks to the Ultimate Sampler Pack, I've gotten to taste all the IQ Bar plant protein bars, and I can testify they are all yummy. I make my flavor choice whether I'm feeling more in the mood for something fruity, like wild blueberry, or something a bit sweeter, like chocolate mint chip. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus get free shipping. To get your 20% off, text AMR to 64,000. Text AMR to 64000. That's AMR to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. In this episode, we touch upon many ways to move through midlife in a healthy, fulfilling way. Momentous Brand's Creatine Chews is one of those healthy habits. Creatine is a daily essential for your strength, focus, recovery, aging, and cognitive performance. Creatine is especially essential for women who naturally store about 70 to 80% less creatine than men, which means consistent supplementation can have an even greater impact on energy, recovery, and focus. And when it comes to supplements you're taking every day, trust really matters. That's exactly why I partnered with Momentous. They've built a reputation as the high-trust brand in a low-trust category by holding themselves to a higher bar, what they call the Momentous Standard. It's their commitment to doing things the right way, not the easy way. Momentous sources only the highest quality ingredients. Each chew delivers exactly 1 gram of CreaPure creatine monohydrate that's NSF certified for sport, which means it's independently tested for purity, safety, and label accuracy. Momentous Creatine Chews are bite-sized lemon-lime chews that make consistency effortless. The citrus flavor is light and pleasant. I chew a few while I put on my socks and shoes before a workout. Right now, Momentous is offering AMR listeners up to 35% off your first order with promo code AMR. Go to livemomentous.com and use promo code AMR for up to 35% off your first order. That's livemomentous.com, L-I-V-E momentous.com, promo code AMR.
So, Selene, we're talking about symptoms, various symptoms, and people having different reactions and different symptoms. And I'm imagining, and you probably talk about this a lot in your podcast, that it's very individuated. So, for me, did I have brain fog? I don't know. There was so much going on in my life. I had brain fog about everything. but the one thing that was undeniable was sweats. So day sweats and night sweats. And Sarah said earlier that I'm on the other side of menopause. So, the sweats continue, and I notice that if I'm stressed, the day sweats pop up again, and also talking from an athletic point of view, on the days when I do my long runs. But I know that night I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night in a sweat, and I'm like, oh, yep, here you are. I see you. I see you, night sweats. And I did also confess to Sarah that I often have a margarita on the day of a long run, so maybe it's a margarita. but that is one. That aside, I do feel like there's some connection between the exertion of the long run and the night sweats. So what's going on there?
That's been shown. There's a new study, actually. Well, not so new now. I think it was 2024, late 2024, that especially acute bouts of activity like a long run or, maybe some more high intensity work can definitely trigger some hot flashes and night sweats. And they're still completely trying to unpack what causes hot flashes, but there's definitely the rise in cortisol. Your brain has a much tighter thermoregulatory center. So anything that makes it feel like, oh, I'm kind of hot, like the after effects of that kind of a run when you are a little more inflamed and you are recovering, 100% can lead to that.
All right, the margarita makes me think about the. Could you talk about how alcohol affects women in midlife? Because I've never been much of a drinker, yet in 2026, for I don't know why, I decided to see what life was like as a complete teetotaler, and I definitely have noticed I'm sleeping a lot better. Even though I swear I probably had, I don't know, 2 or 3 drinks a month in
Hmm.
my previous life.
Yeah, some people are more sensitive to it than others. I mean, alcohol, there's a lot of conversations around alcohol and health and, you know, how it affects people and less drinking, of course, than more drinking is better for you. But for women in menopause specifically, you do hear a lot, and it can trigger hot flashes and night sweats. A lot of people do end up with more vasomotor symptoms. That's what those are called, and the sleep disruption piece can be real. What's really interesting is there was a study in Nature Medicine or Nature Aging, I think it was just last year, that showed that people age in different pivotal points in their lives. And like at age 44, there was this shift in a lot of metabolism, cellular metabolism, and alcohol is a big one. Like the way you process alcohol was one of the biggest pathways that changed around age 44, 45, where, and which is interesting because that's when a lot of people report like, what is up? I used to be able to like, have a couple beers and be fine and not be wrecked the next day. And then men and women will experience this like, now I'm hungover all day. So there's definitely something not just hormonal but metabolic going on.
So Sarah talked earlier about how the world of conversation around perimenopause, menopause has changed so much in I feel like relatively recent years, and
Yeah, just from the time I started
yeah,
to now,
not
it's
that long.
100% different. Yeah.
Right. And there's so much good science around hormone replacement therapy that's also being talked about more these days. But what I'm curious about is what's your take on that from the point of view of an athlete?
I think that Bill Campbell did an interesting survey of menopausal athletes. He's a researcher in the space, and he found that the use of menopause hormone therapy was significantly higher in women who in the athletic population, which actually doesn't surprise me because we're so tuned in with every little thing that sort of changes that if something is disrupting it, we want to adjust that, right? So we're just more tuned into pulling every lever we can for performance and health and recovery and all of that. So that didn't surprise me entirely, but I do think that I myself have really come also to a different place in my mind. When I first started, and I still think not everybody needs it because I do know people who are thriving without it, but I also have come to think that more people would benefit from using it who are resistant or worried about it, that they should be less worried and just willing to try it because it does not have to be forever, and you can try it and you can see how you feel. And if it isn't doing anything or whatever, you can always go off of it or you can continue on it if it does in fact benefit you. But we know now that there are so many, and I'm going to be very clear, menopause hormone therapy is not primarily recommended for anything beyond really those hot flashes, night sweats, and prevention of osteoporosis. Those are really the big ones. That said, there are lots of women who do find that it helps with muscle and joint pain that is related to hormonal changes. And the brain, some women have brain fog resolves because their sleep is better. There's lots of things that get better in your life when you use hormones if those things are related to your hormonal changes, if that makes sense. I tell people find a menopause informed doctor and just talk to them. It's 100% worth a conversation.
I wish I had heard that when I was going through it because when I was going through perimenopause, menopause, HRT still had a really bad rap, and my doctor was adamantly opposed to them. Like it was she would have given me, I don't know, morphine, for
Yeah,
recreational
it's
use
just a
before
shame.
she would have given me an HRT. And so now I'm so envious of all my pickleball pals who talk all about their hormone therapy, and it's just like, hey, I want to get on that train a little bit. So I guess I
Do you feel
regret
like that
to.
ship has sailed?
Well, so two things. I regret not being more proactive back then, but I do feel I have, with health insurance the way it is in our country, I had to get a new primary care provider. And I talked to her about it. And she was kind of like, well, do you have a lot of symptoms? And I stupidly said no. And so I just, but like maybe I just want it so that I won't have my sore knee
I think
and for
that,
heart health, like all
yes.
these things.
Yes, and we're still learning so much about that, but I have come to the place, and I've had Carla DiGirolamo on the show a bunch of times, and she is in that place too. She's a double board certified reproductive endocrinologist, menopause specialist, that women should have the agency to try that without waiting for 30 years of randomized control trials. Right? Like it's so broadly safe. If you are a low risk person, you should 100%, and you could 100% find a menopause informed practitioner who would work with you on that. Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, because
Right. If only it were that easy, though. I mean, the person you just mentioned, that's who I want to talk to.
Yeah, well, that's where all these big telehealth services have stepped in, like the Genevs, and like all MIDI and all of those that provide online, because it is hard to find the menopause informed person, because they have not traditionally taught it in medical school. So we're still like way lagging behind. Taking off the black box warnings has done a lot in that way. So you have doctors, because I'll tell you what, Sarah, I used to get really angry about that. I'd be like, why are you not giving these women the care that they need? And then I talked to a doctor. I was on a bike ride with this doctor who really took those black box warnings to heart and took the training that she had back then to heart, and really thought, my first thing is do no harm, and this is saying it can cause harm. And that, boy, that has done so much damage to women in general. Because even what well, we all know this has been, litigated a million times in the press, but that the way that study was brought out into the world and what it did, we're still trying to undo it.
Yeah, I also, now thinking about it, now looking through the lens of all of this, I'm like, oh, my original doctor who was like, no way, no how. And then this new doctor that I talked to, they're both roughly the same age. And so that I'm thinking, oh, they probably went to medical school at the same time, got the same sort of training. And yeah.
And if they didn't go for further menopause specific training later on, a doctor needs to pursue that on their own. It's not like it's come to them,
Right. So that the newer doctor that I saw, she said, well, we're just going to be learning so much from all, these trans individuals, seeing what long-term exposure to hormone therapy can do. And I was like, that's a very intriguing point. And I hate to say it, but I sort of got distracted because I thought, wow, that's a legitimate thing, that there are people of various ages being then saying, okay, I'm going to get on this female hormone therapy for the rest of their lives to, have their gender align with, their inner self. And so I'm like, so then I start thinking that, and completely kind of forgot, like, well, here I am. I have no family history of breast cancer. I have, great blood pressure, super low pulse rate, this whole thing. And I just kind of left the office before I could stand firmly in my shoes, I guess.
Yeah, I would recommend standing firmly in your shoes and going back. Put on because I do think that it's worth a conversation.
So it's not, so to close this out, and I promise then, Tish, I'll let you ask a question, but this isn't my just personal session, but people can, even if they didn't do it while they were going through, having hot flashes several times a week, you can still.
Yeah, even according to guidelines. So you went, how old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I'm 60.
Okay. So you are just outside of that magical 10-year window. So, it's supposed to be like, it's best used within 10 years of menopause or before the age of 60, right? But there's no wall that comes down and been like, you're done. Because that was really just based on cardiovascular disease. So basically, by the time somebody is 60 plus, they've often developed some level of cardiovascular disease. And using, especially, but then again, we get into this, especially oral estrogen has a clotting element to it. So it just kind of raises your risk. If you add cardiovascular disease with something that can increase blood clotting, that can be problematic, right? But if you are in the health that you're in, your cardiovascular age is probably below your chronological age. So that's where you're 100%. I mean, there's no real cutoff. There's no hard cutoff.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to running.
Oh, okay, yes.
It's not the Sarah show? What?
No, it's fine.
So I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about how women runners can deal with the hormone shifts in perimenopause and menopause and continue running, feeling good and healthy and energetic and without injuries, all of that. Okay, go.
Yes. Well, resistance, I mean, I'll bang on that drum all day. Resistance training is so good for you. I highly recommend it for every single person, especially women who you can lose 20% of your total bone density loss around the time of menopause. It's huge. We really need to pay attention to that. And strength training is just good for you. It helps running economy. It helps tendons. It helps everything. So strength train, please. There was a paper that came out a couple years ago called The Musculoskeletal Syndrome of Menopause, which talked about how the changes in estrogen specifically can really lead to, and you see this, like people will show up with more injuries during perimenopause and menopause because their ligament and tendons are just, the quality of those tissues is just changing. Frozen shoulder becomes more common. Itises, all the itises become more common, all of that stuff. So on top of exploring hormone therapy, which I do think is worth exploring, there's also an increased prevalence of inflammation, like chronic inflammation gets higher. So anything that you can do to bring inflammation down, and omega-3s, there was just a really big meta-analysis on omega-3s for exercise recovery. It literally just came out a couple of weeks ago, I think. Shows really nice benefit of lowering your inflammation. Anti-inflammatory diet, watching all those highly processed foods, eating more whole foods, eating more fiber, taking care of your protein, like all the stuff you hear about can really make a difference, especially in this time of life, because you're really trying to bring down that inflammatory state that you just kind of find yourself in, and does set the stage for more injury.
So sometimes I feel like I dodge the bullet a little bit with menopause, that I had enjoyed some good running through my 40s. I mean, I qualified for Boston twice, ran Boston twice. But that, through the Another Mother Runner community, I've so often heard of women who felt they had to stop running completely, often due to lack of energy or specific menopausal symptoms. So, and that you can just see on their faces how they feel that loss, both emotionally, physically. And do you have any advice for gals like that?
Yeah, I do think that you need to, I mean, I hate to say give yourself grace, because what does that even mean? But you need to sort of look at it as what it is that it's a transition. Your body is going through this transitory state, and what can you do to support it? I really, really do encourage people to find a provider who is menopause informed to work with, because some of these things can be mitigated by hormonal or other therapies. If they can't use hormone therapy, there are other therapies that can help with things like sleep and with depression and anxiety and brain fog and energy. There's you don't have to suffer through that. There are ways. I I understand that when you feel overwhelmed with that, it can feel that much more overwhelming to be like, okay, now I have to make a doctor's appointment and I have to talk. I mean, I get it. I understand. But the benefits are real and they're worth it. And also it's okay if you're in it to just step aside a little bit, and try something, get on a bike, try something else. Just like go to the gym. Just change it up a little bit so you're not constantly mired in the why am I not as fast as I was last year? Why am I, that sort of that spiral that you can get yourself in. Sometimes I think it helps just to take a little step out, stay active, do some other stuff while you address it, just so you're not beating yourself up over, as we all do, with self-comparison.
So Selene, just a question or two ago, I asked you, and you answered by saying lifting weights, right? And I knew we were going to talk to you today. I'm like, I got to lift some weights before I talk to Selene because I know she's going to talk about that, and I don't want to feel guilty about not having done this. and it's a topic we talk about a lot on this podcast. You talk a lot about it on Hit Play for obvious reasons. That strength training is so especially critical for women as they age. And there are a lot of women who are kind of averse to lifting heavy, especially. So give us some advice about, I don't know, getting over the adversity to it. But we know it's important. Help us with that.
Well, I would say, first of all, any strength training you do is good strength training. So even if you're adverse or worried, just do it. Just lift some weights. Make sure that it feels challenging. So if that means that you're lifting moderate weights in 8 to 10 reps, but it should still feel hard by the time you get to the 10th rep, that is still going to do your body good. So start there. And I think it is worth, we do know that heavier loads, especially for strength, which is the foundation of power, even brain health, a little heavier loads go a long way. I think I proselytize about it so much because it changed my athletic life so much. As soon as I had never lifted heavy. I had always just lifted moderate when I lifted at all because I'm not a big gym person. But when I went in and learned to lift with some barbells and learned to lift heavy, I felt worlds better on my bike, trail running, all of it. It was transformative. But the key is, I would never have just wandered into a gym and picked up a barbell in a million lifetimes. That was not going to happen. So I went in and I got a couple sessions and I learned how to do it appropriately and properly. So I had the confidence to go in and do it. And there's something about it that it gives you a nice little rush that, it's a very central nervous system heavy activity. So you're just whoa. And you don't get as, that's why cyclists lift heavy. And a lot of, you look at these skinny, world tour guys, they're lifting pretty heavy because they're not trying to break themselves down with lots of reps. They want that economy of power that you get when you lift heavy. And I think that's what I felt on my mountain bike, especially. I had reached a point where I just felt like I didn't have that punch or that torque that I always had, and lifting heavy put that back. And I felt it when I would trail run, especially on technical terrain. I still feel it. I just think it's worth it. And when we have retreats where we have lifting retreats where women come and learn to lift heavy, the internal transformation that you see in women is not to be underappreciated. It is unbelievable, the transformation that you see when women get that ability and confidence and because we underestimate way too often how heavy we can lift. Women, the same women who will lift a giant 40-pound bag of dog food or a wheelbarrow full of stuff for their garden or a rain barrel. I'm you're lifting so much heavier than you think you can. So,
well, before we let you go, you mentioned retreats. And so, you are doing, is it true that you're doing the Grand Traverse?
I am doing the Grand Traverse. I have not decided my distance yet. 27 is probably longer than I want to. I'm going between 17 and 21.
So Grand Traverse, for folks who don't know, is, Dimity schemed up this idea to have people meet in Duluth, Minnesota, which is a lovely place right there on Lake Superior.
I've never been up there. I've been to Minnesota, but never up there.
I've never been to Duluth, but like its name implies, Lake Superior is the largest of the Great Lakes.
It's a big one.
Yes, yeah. And so that it is, and that's, I believe, the first weekend in October.
Yes.
And so that people can do everything from hike. It's all a one-day event. Hike from 10 miles. I believe 17 or 21 miles.
And then it's 10, 17, 21, and 27.
Yes, and you can either run or walk, and so hike or run. And so Dimity will be hiking one of those distances. The word on the street was you were going to run 27 miles. That's what I've been telling people.
Is that what they're saying?
That's what I've been proselytizing.
Maybe 21. I don't know. We'll see. 27 is a...
Okay, yeah.
Maybe
but
not.
There will be a train... There'll be a Feisty Another Mother Runner training program that allows people to do that, and circling back to community. There's meals, and I think you all have a dinner the night before,
yeah.
and I know that Dimity just had a great time last year, so she's looking forward to that. So really pleased that you're going to be doing that. So and then you and I get to see each other at Feisty Fest in September. I'm excited for that. Yeah. There in your beloved state of Pennsylvania. So, yeah.
Yeah, my backyard, really.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for more perimenopause and menopause talk with Selene, listen to Hit Play Not Pause wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening and maybe watching on YouTube. Our show is a production of Another Mother Runner and Feisty Media. For more on Feisty and our other shows, events, workshops, and Feisty Fest and that Grand Traverse, go to feisty.co.